Oh boy, they screwed that up. Greetings, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that you are here. Today's jank, boy, oh boy, folks, they don't get much jankier. Here we are. We are trying to take advantage of Reap the Past. This is a very, very powerful card that you haven't seen much of because it's a little bit awkward colors, and it's pretty slow for the historic format. Red, green, and then X. Return X cards at random from your graveyard to your hand. Exile, Reap the Past. So, this is a great way of just getting infinite value from your bin and potentially just being able to kill your opponent, right? There are a number of different ways to build this. I have gone with a generic value shell. We'll see how this works. I think it might be maybe a little slow, but we're going to take it to ranked anyway. I think it might be better than some of our more jankier decks. Hopefully, I'm not wrong on that. That said, how are we getting cards into our graveyard? First of all, Dragon's Rage Channeling. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Surveil. 1. Then as long as there are 4 or more, it gets +2/+2 flying and must attack each combat if able. So just a generically really powerful card. If you're in Historic, in Red, chances are you are probably playing this card. Very, very strong. Deathbonnet Sprout. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. Then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform it. And it becomes a 3/3, and then you may exile a creature card from a graveyard, any graveyard, yours or theirs. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on it. And then we are playing Binding of the Titans as well. Each player mills 3 cards. Exile up to 2 cards from graveyards. For each creature card exiled this way, you gain a life. Return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. This is in here for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's main deck graveyard hate for things like the Phoenix decks, things like that. But it also allows us to kind of thin our own graveyard, should we want to, so that our Reap the Past end up getting us more action, right? And then we can return a creature or land from our graveyard to your hand. Again, good later on as well. Then Unholy Heats, if we come up with Delirium, it's a crazy removal spell. If not, it's kind of a shock, but only on creatures or planeswalkers. Static Discharge. This is a digital only card. 2 mana sorcery, deals 3 damage to any target. And then it gets bigger every time you cast a card called Static Discharge. So the first one you cast is 3 damage, the next one you cast is 4, the next one you cast is 5, right? So the cool thing about Static Discharge in this deck is if we Reap the Past, you know, we cast like a Static Discharge or 2. We Reap the Past, get them back, cast them again. Every Static Discharge, whether it's in our hand, library, or graveyard, all of them get bigger for the rest of the game. We could just potentially burn our opponent out, right? Where face down to 17, face down to 13, get them back. Now the next one is going to do 5, and then the next one's going to do 6. So then face from 13 down to 8, and then face down to 2, right? Like, holy crap, this is getting out of hand. And theoretically, we would still have 2 more Static Discharges in the deck, just having Reap the Past 2 of them back, right? So this is, you know, it's a very, very powerful card if we are afforded the time to cast it. We'll see. Similarly, Bonecrusher Giant, a very good card because it's 2 spells in 1. So generically, it ends up in a lot of decks. Stomp an opponent's creature, then cast a 4/3. Well, okay. We do that. It goes to our graveyard. We can Reap the Past to get back 2 cards for the price of 1, should it come back. Hinterland Chef, similarly, when it enters, draft a card from the spell book. It perpetually gains. It's a food. But, you know, it kind of gives us more action, as well as when we Reap the Past it back, we can get even more action, right? So kind of disguised card advantage there. Garruk, Wrath of the Wild is very similar. It comes down as a 4-drop. And yes, it can plus to give creatures in our hand, +1/+1 and stuff. But more importantly, it can -1 to give us a 3 or, you know, a 2 or a 3 mana creature. Or there is even 1 enchantment in here, but for the most part, creatures. So it's kind of one of those really sweet value plays where it's never dead. one of the worst feelings is when you cast a mid-rangey creature or something and your opponent just kills it, right? It dies to Doomblade or whatever. Well, with Garruk, we cast it out. We immediately get a second thing. So it protects itself in creature style matchups. But also, if the opponent is just going to immediately burn it or use a removal spell or something, we still get something. We get 2 very real cards from it. Again, the creature going to our bin, being able to read the past to get it back. And if it sticks out, it can just generate an absolute army all on its own. Last but not least is Key to the Archive. This might seem a little weird in here. First of all, we are a Delirium shell, so having a couple of artifacts is good. But importantly, it also gives us access to very, very powerful late-game engine-style stuff. So if we mill over Binding the Titans, things like that, we can Reap the Past, do these things. But then also keep in mind, we can Reap the Past back some of these very, very powerful cards. Demonic Tutors to get more Reap the Past. We can approach the Second Sons, potentially just win the game, right? We can Time Warp, take extra turns. We can actually be casting Counterspell in our red-green, style deck, right? Given whatever, and potentially we could be casting it more than once, right? But another important card in here is the fact that it gives us some removal, but it also can give us regrowth. So we can just go ahead and grab another important thing back from the bin. So there are quite a few of these that are just absolute bombs, and it isn't even necessarily the mythics that we need, but very, very good, right? So specifically, yeah, getting back static discharges, things like that. Very, very good. That said, without further ado, let's see if we can do some games, huh? All right, folks, here we are up against Nixon. Good luck, Nixon. And I mean, this isn't a great hand, but I think it's a fine hand. We'll keep it for now. Going to start on a mountain. Dragon's Rage Channeler. See what our opponent does. They go with Spire Bluff Canal. All right. And we're going to wait. Unholy Heat is the card. Opponent's turn. They go with Steam Vents tapped. Okay. Well, I guess 2 can play at that game. We'll go Stomping Ground tapped. We could fire out the Static Discharge right at our opponent's face here. I don't know. That doesn't seem too beneficial. Let's try and run out a Binding of the Titans. It does happen. Each player mills 3 cards. Unfortunately, that is actively helpful for our opponent. But that's okay. The next level of this card does exile things. Unfortunately, our opponent does not have any Arclight Phoenixes to get rid of. So there's that. But, alright. Gain a life. Take Dragon's Rage Channeler off of Delirium. And just Garruk Wrath of the Wild. Yeah, I think this is fine. Go ahead, go down. Get a dude. It's going to be... Sure. I guess the Nessian Hornbeetle. None of those choices were particularly good. We don't really want to be dumping a bunch of mana into things. Opponent, Unholy Heats. That's Unholy Heat number 2, folks. On our Garruk Wrath of the Wilds. Not too disappointed about that. You know, we spent 4 mana, got a 2-drop. But our opponent also got rid of one of their few removal spells. They don't have that many removal spells here. The sorceries do count. Or, I'm sorry, the Pillar of Flame does count, but it is a sorcery, and that's different. Whoa! Our opponent's Unholy Heating our Nessian Hornbeetle? Holy cats, folks. That is fantastic news. Could not be happier about that. Yeah. Let's just go with the Dragon's Rage Channeler, I guess. And a Landorino, our own Dragon's Rage Channeler. And cast another Garruk Wrath of the Wilds, immediately surveilling. Reap the Past. How do we feel about this? Yeah, to the bin. I think we need to draw some more removal. Immediately going down again. Let's see. I don't think the Death Touch is going to do much. The gaining 4 life could matter. But I think the Territorial Scythe Cat, just being able to grow throughout the course of the game, does kind of ask for a removal spell pretty immediately. Our opponent is likely to have more Pillar of Flames before the game is out, which for the next couple of turns could get rid of the Territorial Scythe Cat. Oh my word, folks. That's all of their Unholy Heats. Every one of them. Now, admittedly, they do have... what is that card called? Finale of Devastation, I think? Finale of Promise? Finale of Red. That can flash things back. So this is not necessarily all we've seen of Unholy Heats, but the fact that they can't just cast them is relevant, right? And a Finale of Promise. There it is, sure enough. Okay. This is going to sweep our board, unfortunately. The good thing about getting the Finale of Promise out of hand now is that our opponent is now even farther away from Delirium. This is going to take away a sorcery. So we've got to hope they don't do a lot of surveilling sorceries into the bin. Oh, no, I forgot. Finale of Promise is sorcery. So actually, never mind. There isn't much good about this at all. This is all terrible, actually. Oh, boy, they screwed that up. Oh, boy, they screwed that up. They were supposed to reverse that. Oh, no. I guess it doesn't matter, because they didn't end up with Delirium off of the Dragon's Rage Channeler. Wow. Folks, that actually worked out just abundantly well for us, especially considering we can now Garruk, Wrath of the Wilds, Surveil again, Mountain, sure, and Deathbonnet Sprout, and Scurrid Colony does have reach, folks. It is not yet a 4/4, but it does have reach, so very, very relevant here. Our opponent, I was just beginning to think, well, shoot, man, our opponent hasn't seen very many Phoenixes yet. You know, no Phoenixes, actually, which is a bit unlucky. They're down to 43 cards in library. But admittedly, normally by this stage of the game, our opponent has gone through half or more of their library. So they've actually been slowed down quite a bit by the fact that they had all these interactive spells. The Pillar of Flames, Unholy Heats, getting fired off every single turn means they're not opting, and they're not... considering, and those sorts of things that really, really give their deck a lot of velocity, right? Also, no Expressive Iterations. Arguably the best card in their deck, honestly, if you ask me. An Expressive Iteration could easily be the best card in their deck. And that just digs really deep. On it deep in the tank. Possibly a little tilted, actually. I wouldn't even blame them. Because this is the third Garruk Wrath of the Wilds. And sure enough, here comes an Arclight Phoenix. Hey, we're going to block, 100%. Yeah. And... yeah. Come on down. Yeah, okay. Nessian Horn Beetle could grow over time. I think we're going to... do we Static Discharge or Wreath the Past for 4? Could also Static Discharge, Wreath the Past for 2. I think we would rather wait on a big Reap the Past, and we're not really under a big clock here. So let's just go ahead, get in for 6. Our opponent is in a bit of a spot here for sure. Arclight Phoenix comes down. I don't think they can attack here. That is... maybe they have another removal spell, I guess, but that does not seem wise. Because, yeah, I mean... we now have Lethal. Plus, actually. Really wanted to use this Reap the Wilds, but... didn't need to. GG, opponent. GG. Alright, folks. Here we are on the play up against Lao. Not our best hand. We have quite a few 1-drops that we would really like to get started off with. But, I think this hand is strong enough either way that it's fine, right? Oh, no. Oh, no! Folks, our opponent apparently on Delvery things, which the Binding of the Titans is really going to help. So I guess we're going to Bonecrusher Giant. We don't, like, there's a case we made for waiting until the reveal here, but our opponent, there is an is-it kind of controlling style deck that does run some Spell Pierces and things like that. We expect this to just be Phoenix, but if it ended up being that other version, we could be really punished by having our opponent Spell Pierce, our Bonecrusher Giant. They could grow to be a 3-2 and start swinging away and really beat up on us here. If that were the case. So we're going to go ahead and not do that. Just get a Bonecrusher Giant down and pass the turn. It's possible I was supposed to Bonecrusher the Dragon's Rage Channeler to prevent all of the surveilling. It's also inherently possible I was supposed to Binding of the Titans this turn, actually, to hope to mill over Arclight Phoenixes, because they wouldn't have the mana to get the Arclight Phoenixes out of the turn, or out of the graveyard very easily, right? Perhaps that was the better play. Alright. No Phoenixes yet. And Faithful Suiting. Surveilling some more. A land away. Two cards into the hand. And some Phoenixes to the bin. Hopefully not. No Phoenixes to the bin. There is an Expressive Iteration that goes away, though. Alright. Well. Binding, the Titans. Everybody's gonna mill. And we're gonna go ahead and attack. No reason not to. Opponent drops to 14. And end that turn. Alright. Opponent goes with Consider. Surveils. Another Ox goes away. Well, those are good targets if nothing else, right? And if our opponent wants to bring back an Ox this turn, I mean, that would be a little inconvenient, but it definitely wouldn't be the end of the world. Tell me, for real, they don't hit any? I'm sure they're saying the same thing. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But we really wanted to be able to exile those. Opponent considers. Surveils. An Expressive Iteration away. Keeps whatever card that is on top. Draws it into the hand. It's a Sulphur Falls, and our turn. Oh well. Well, Ox of Agonus. Ox of Agonus. And I think we're just going to go ahead and reap the past X equals 3. And just get everything back. And the problem is that's only lands. And we're going to get one of those things back anyway, right? And this gets exiled. Yeah, this is exceptionally awkward. Do we... You know what? Let's just present lethal. They currently... These must attack. So they currently are on get their Arclight Phoenixes or die. So, you know. I think this is fine. Oh, no, they do have an Arclight Phoenix. See if they attack with it. They might not have done the math. Yeah, you have to attack. Yes, yes. Okay. I mean, I'm not thrilled about that, but it's fine. We are not strictly dead here. Alright, so let's reap the past X equals 3 now. Get back our Binding of the Titans. Our opponent must block or they die. I don't think they want to die. But that does not mean we're in good shape. They only have one card left. They're going to draw for turn. So it is absolutely not outside the realm of possibilities to get this Arclight Phoenix back. The good thing for us is that just getting back a single Arclight Phoenix is not enough, right? All right, so now, okay, leaving it on top is very, very bad because that means they needed a land and 2 1-drop spells. If they kept on top, that probably means they've got some amount of that, you know? That is the second Arclight Phoenix. Are we dead? Considers. Okay, so they needed, they had the other 1-drop spell. I see. So now they're looking for a land, probably. Oh, yeah, they send away a Consider. They're looking for a land. Now I Promise goes away. Is it the untapped land? It's an untapped red source. And they did have it. Oh my goodness, folks. The problem is they surveilled all of the things away. They just had to get that lucky. And they did. They just got that lucky because they needed an untapped red source, right? And boom. They got it. Yeah, sometimes you put cards in your deck and you draw them. GG, opponent, GG. What is this hand, folks? I do not know. We're gonna keep it and try to draw into a red source here. I'm not gonna lie, folks. We've been getting really unlucky, so I feel like it's our turn to get lucky. So I'm gonna bank on having that happen, us getting lucky here, and pray that it does happen, because darn it, we are really getting kind of pretty unlucky, honestly. All right, the other Static Discharge goes away. Goblin and Archomancer. Hey, there we go. Loses some lands. Hopefully they needed those. Yeah, I think we're going to do this because these get... these can also go face. And, you know, when we do 3, then 4, then 5, it's like 12 damage. Our opponent is not able to... Really not sure what our opponent's doing over there. So I know that Runaway Steamkin is dangerous, though. So I guess we're going to send that one away. They could be trying to storm in some kind of red and green version. Hey, peace. Well, all right. I think they were trying to storm, folks, and that's why they scooped here. Because keep in mind, we are in ranked, so this is unlikely to be one of those really early scoops. But they were needing their cost to be reduced, right? And we got them. We got them. GG, opponent, GG. Oh, boy. Oh, folks. That was rough. Oh, that was not good. We recorded quite a few games, and man, oh man, did we get beat up. Admittedly, we knew kind of going in that this might be a little bit... You know, we knew it was janky. We knew it might be a little bit slow. But I ended up playing 7 games. And we won 2. Not great, right? It is relevant that we ended up against 2 Phoenix decks, and we did beat one, so there is that. But in general, when we are milling our opponent with Binding the Titans and stuff, like, that's actively beneficial to their deck. So that's going to work against us. Similarly, we also ended up against 2 control decks that were just dedicated control. And the one, I don't think we're going to end up being able to show it. We'll see when the editing all comes out. Maybe we can trim it down, the gameplay, or something. But the one game was like 48-minute or a 50-minute game, I think. Because our opponent was playing blue-white artifacts and with teleportation circles, so they were exiling and returning to draw a bunch of cards, and then it was just blue-white control. Not counter magic stuff, but all the board sweepers, the Teferis, both Teferis, Narsets, and they were exiling the Key of the Archives that we've already seen have a lot of really powerful cards in them, right? They were exiling the Tome of the Infinite that lets you go and find a 1-drop, so Swords to Plowshares and Light of Hopes and Dark Rituals, that sort of thing, right? All those powerful 1-drops. They were exiling artifacts to let them draw cards and stuff. We literally had them down to like 6 cards left in their library. It had gone on so long. All 4 of our Reap the Past were in the bottom 20 cards of our library. It was miserable. We finally got there when they had, whatever, 7 or 8 cards in our library. We got to cast a single Reap the Past, get a bunch of value back, really put them in a tough spot, and they drafted the Approach the Second Sons of Magician win. After like 50 minutes or something. I'm telling you, it was so frustrating. Especially when this deck is already going to kind of struggle against that deck. And we could have actually blown them away hard. 2 of our Static Discharges were also in the bottom 20 cards. So we only saw 2 Static Discharges in the early part of the game. So our graveyard was full of all of the stuff that we wanted to get back, and we just couldn't get our Reap the Pass, right? It's true, admittedly, in that game specifically, I was binding the Titans and I was exiling things from their bin when... it's quite possible we're supposed to be exiling some of our own lands and stuff to make our Reap the Past be better. Man, it was so frustrating. And then we had, you know, another just generic Jeskai control matchup that was pretty miserable, as control matchups can be. We had a turn 2 loss to Minion of the Mighty. Or, well, I mean, technically, I think it was turn 3. But they were on the play. If I remember right, they were on the play. I don't know, whatever. Either way, we were dead actually on turn 3. But they had Minion of the Mighty grow and put in a... whatever the green Elder Dragon thing is. To get a bunch of treasures, you know? And then cast Darigaz Reignited on turn 2 as well. So they had 2 7/7 dragons on turn 2. Feels bad. So then, yeah, technically we didn't lose on turn 2. We lost on turn 3, but you know what I mean. Darn it. So like a little bit. And then our other loss was to Mono Brown, which I don't think is traditionally like an unwinnable matchup for us. We just need to be a little more aggressive than the hand I kept. And you know, it's part of that's best of 1 for you, you know. So we got a little bit unlucky, but man, it was a brutal set of games. Would I recommend building this? No. Please don't. It was... I'll admit, the Reap the Past, getting to cast that stuff was a lot of fun when we were doing it. And stuff. So I definitely want to fool around with this some more. There's definitely some things we could do. But holy crud, folks. It was 2 wins, 5 losses. Not good. So that said, things you might change. You know, the Hinterland Chefs, I don't think were aggressive enough. They did exactly what we asked them to. But I think when Hinterland Chef dies and whatever we get back with it dies, too often the Reap the Past is going to be too slow in those matchups. So I don't think it really did what we were asking it to do. Maybe just something else that's really aggressive. So we can have our aggro draws with 1 and 2 drops, but then we can also, you know, kind of grind really hard with Key to the Archives and Reap the Past and stuff too, should the situation go long. So in that instance, I don't know, maybe some kind of green and red thing at 2, or potentially, yeah, just maybe another red 1-drop, possibly. But yeah, you know, things like, I don't know, Brushfire Elemental, that sort of thing, do seem pretty reasonable here, giving us an aggressive start or something like that. Maybe just Burning Trees as well, that sort of thing, to really help us get onto the board, potentially. Might be better than the Hinterland Chef. As far as the Key to the Archive, it did play really well. It did what we asked it to. It was also there for Delirium. But it is possible this is better off as a Maze Mind Tome or something. But admittedly, Maze Mind Tome is also really slow, so I'm not sure. Beyond that, you know, I wouldn't really recommend the deck. But, you know, Reap the Past is fun. We're probably going to screw around with it some more in the future. But for now, I think I would leave this one alone. Without further ado, though, you folks have a fantastic evening, and I will catch you next time.